Little box and the green one. Little box and the blue one. Box and the yellow one and the little and the box and the green one.
Justice. An idea probably as old as humanity, but the way it is carried out has changed dramatically over the course of human history. I'll ask you to think, what did justice look like to you as a child? Now, what do you think justice means as an adult? We will explore this in today's episode of You Can Call Me Karen.
Box. Little box.
Welcome. I am your host, Karen, and I am joined by my intelligent, funny, beautiful, kind, sometimes a little sassy co-hosts, Steph.
Good morning.
And
Well, whatever time of day it is for you. Good morning. Wait, you
And
can do better
Mandy.
than that. Good. Good morning.
I mean, literally, Manny was just saying she's feeling a little low energy today.
I am, but I know how to pull it out, you know? That's
You have 3 kids. I would argue
I
you
don't-
don't. Oh, anyways, yeah, as you heard at the top, we are going to talk about justice today, which feels kind of deep for what for us is a Sunday morning.
yeah, just a little.
But we're doing it. Before
a
we
tad.
do that, we got to hear who you calling Karen? Who's kicking
Who
us
you
off?
calling, Karen?
You know what? I would like to go first because okay. I'm gonna go first because mine again is, if you listen to a previous episode, it was related to my adventures on the Facebook. And
Not
do you remember when it was called the Facebook?
I do.
And so it's another situation on Facebook.
you
And
got to get out of there.
I know it's like a sign that I'm done. Like I need to be done, but I can't be. So here we are. So guess what?
What?
I'm the Karen.
Ah! You're Karen?
I'm Karen. Mhm.
I'm ready.
Yeah, this guy I'm friends with on Facebook posted some super transphobic post. It was like one of those videos that I would imagine plays on like Breitbart or something, showing it said, like, you know what I mean? It was basically like, watch this male who is allowed to play girls basketball injure this player. And it was like a video, and I was just like, it just like my blood just boiled. And so I think, our definition of Karen is like someone who isn't able to mind their own business. And I feel like on social media, you kind of have a couple choices. You can look at something and just scroll on. You can unfriend. You can unfollow. Like there's a lot of ways that you could just get yourself out of that situation. But I reported it.
That is not what I expected.
You guys, there's a button that you can push where you can say that you can report it as, reported it as violent and hateful.
Oh my gosh.
And like it asks you like follow-up questions, and I answered them all. Like I took
Wait, you got to give us one of the follow-up questions. What was one of the follow-up that you can remember?
It was basically like, what category would you characterize this as? And it was like, is it hateful? Is it violent? Is it this? And so I selected like hate speech or something like that. And then it was like, do you consider this harmful? And I clicked yes. And I like,
Good.
yeah. And it's like, what would you like us to do? And I don't remember what like their follow-up was. I did get a report back. Like a little bit
Ooh.
later, they're like, just want to let you know that we followed up with a report. The post was not removed, but we did consider it if you think we made a mistake. And I was like,
Oh, great. Thanks for your help,
I
Facebook.
think I made a mistake. I think you made a mistake, but I just like left it. But I mean, and I don't
That
know
is
if
full
the
on
person is.
Karen.
Thank you. I know. Something in me just flipped a switch and I was like, I'm done with this freaking nonsense. And I unfollowed him and
Good.
reported him.
You're making me think about a situation that it was in a couple weeks ago, and I was thinking about our podcast in this similar way of like, our last episode, we talked about like gossip, right? And like, what is the danger of gossip? But we put a little bit of levity on it because we were talking about like celebrities, right? But like, I think I struggle with like the definition of a Karen because like in this situation, like my default would be like with you, like just to like gossip about it and be like, can you believe that this person did it? When there are actual like structural like procedures that we can go through to make change and to be of action, to have solution. And because we have this definition of being a Karen, sometimes I don't use those tools to make change because I feel like I'm going to be a Karen, right? And so like I just kind of I I have a hard time with like what it means to like actually step up and speak and advocate, because we have labeled like speech and advocacy and things like this as being Karen behavior. So then I just default to gossip and then nothing of real change actually occurs. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I was thinking about that when you were talking stuff.
I kind of was thinking along similar lines. It's like the report feature is there for a reason. And so if we're not using it, then what's the point? But then also you report it and they say
Nothing really
nothing
happened. I
happened.
know. And I didn't honestly expect anything to happen. I just was like, I'd like some negative attention be drawn to this. And if it pings his account, good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think this goes back to too, like our a couple episodes ago when we talked about like cancel culture and how you like introduced this story of like, I think this means I need to be done with Facebook.
Yeah.
Of like that, like if you have a company or an industry that says it is going to provide some sort of service and you no longer are providing that kind of service, then I do have the authority and the right to walk away from that. And like, if more people like understand that, then like we actually give ourselves the power back and we decrease the power of these like social media platforms, as what we were talking about like a few months back with like cancel culture,
Yeah.
Wow, that one really made me think. That was good. I think that was a, you know what? This is making me think also about like we got our results back from that survey of like what do we call like a nice Karen? We got a couple of options here. Well, there was no one real winner. It was all over the place. We had Ruth, a vote for Ruth by our girl,
Bree.
Yay.
And then we had
shout out number 2.
Speaking of shout outs, I do want to give a shout out to my friend Maggie Ludman, who is an avid listener of this podcast. I was with her last week at a social event and she like every person who came up to her was like, do you know Monica? She is a part of this really great podcast called You Can Call Me Carrie. And she was just supporting
Oh,
us, endorsing us.
Yes.
And
Maggie.
she left us a review.
what?
I know. She's like, I don't know. It's a hard one between her and Bree. She's like, you're my
Uh-oh.
number
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Uh-oh, Bree.
And so I want to shout out Maggie. Also, we recognize that was our anniversary from when we first met a year ago. So happy anniversary, Maggie. This is your anniversary present.
So cute. Awesome. Thanks, Steph. So Manny, who's your Karen of the week?
So my Karen is going to be a fictional character, Karen, but I'm going to take it all the way back to this one part in one of my favorite movies. I don't know what prompted me to like have this as my Karen, but actually I kind of do. But that's neither here nor there right now. So Karen, I wonder if you've even seen this movie. So
Probably not.
Selena.
Selena's.
Anything for
Selena.
Selena. Steph, you just got so bright and like your eyes just lit all the way up.
That movie is just, I love it with all my heart.
Me too. I love that movie so much. It's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So there's this one part for those of you who are like Karen and deprived of great pop cultural cinema. There's this one part where Selena has just kind of like hit a stride where she's becoming a little bit more famous and she's invited to the Grammys. So she is in LA at like a mall and she is shopping for an outfit for the Grammys and she is going to one of like the fancier stores and these two white women are like watching her and like how like what is that word called where you're like being watched in the store and like making sure that like
Profiled?
she doesn't yes they're like profiling her around the store and they even I think make a comment of like can you like afford that kind of thing and she like goes her and her friend are like can we just have a dressing room? Like we didn't ask you about how much it cost. We just want to know if we can go into the fitting room and and try on the outfit. Thank you. So she goes in and on her way to the dressing room, somebody notices her. And then this whole scene like transpires of like everyone in the mall is like, oh my God, Selena's here. And like you just see all these people like start to scramble. And then all of a sudden when she comes out of the dressing room, it's like this huge crowd of people like Selena's like all different demographics, like asking for her autograph. And you see her like going out and signing the autographs and like the white women are like looking on like what the heck is happening here, and she just turns to them and is like, we don't need the dress, thanks.
Yes.
She gives like the cutest wink to her friend, like
yes, the cutest wink to her friend. She was like, yeah, her friend was trying on the dress of like, and she's like, do you like it, to her friends as she's like signing the autographs, and she's like, and she's like, we don't need the dress, thanks, and then winks, and it is like my favorite moment of cinema in that movie, and like I don't know why. I think it's because like I like aspire to be that graceful in a moment when and if a Karen treats me that way, like I just want to be able to have that much like stoicism to just like be like, yeah, fuck yeah, and give a wink, like we don't need it, thanks.
Yeah, I'm not that cool for sure. I wish I could
it's
be.
like Pretty Woman.
Like, yeah,
yes,
I was like, I knew there was a reference that I could relate this to.
My coworker and I actually just talked about the Pretty Woman thing because my school has been bringing in food trucks for lunch every Friday for the teachers because like we have 30 minutes minus minus heating up your lunch to eat. And so we never really can go out to lunch. And so our administrator started bringing in food trucks for us on Fridays, which has been kind of cool.
That's cool.
And my coworker
really nice.
ordered something, and the food was not right. Like, they messed up the order so bad, and I don't know. And so the next time that same food truck came again, and she was like, I am not ordering from there. And so she placed an order for like DoorDash and got all of like the people in her hallway to order the same thing. And so I was walking with her, and she went and got her DoorDash order, and it was literally like 2 big old bags of food because so many people ordered from where she wanted to. And she was like, I should walk past the food truck. And I'm like, big mistake. I was like, go out there and do it. I'll hold the door open for you. Big mistake. Huge.
Oh, that's so good.
I also have not seen Pretty Woman, but I do know the scene. I do know the scene that we're referencing. But I just want to be clear to our listeners, I am an equal opportunity employer. I do not watch any movies.
You're killing me on that one, though, Karen.
Oh,
I know.
God.
I'm sorry.
What in the world is happening? Our stock just went down.
Yeah. Our 3 listeners are like, wait a second. Pretty Woman.
My mom is one of them, by the way. She's like, I haven't seen it either.
Oh,
I mean, she's the one who raised me, so thanks, Mama. All right, well, those are your Karens for the week. Awesome. Okay, well, now that we have heard about our Karens, we are diving into our topic. So today, I want to talk about justice. You know, just another light topic for the week. This is actually something that I added to our Google Doc, like at the very inception of the idea of this podcast. And it's because I actually listened to another podcast. It's You're Wrong About by Sarah Marshall. And she did an episode called What Even Is Justice with Amanda Knox. And I first of all, highly recommend it. We will link it. But second of all, it really like changed my mind about how I thought about justice. So in preparing for today, I did a little bit of research of like the history of justice. And what I've learned is that I know this is obvious, but I never thought about it. Like before, somewhere in the 500 to 600 BC range, humans actually carried out their own justice. There was no like formal legal system, right? So hypothetically, if I was a farmer or something and someone came and stole some of my crops, there was no system for me to take this up with. If I wanted justice, I would literally take it upon myself to find that person, right or wrong, if I found the right person, and then give them the quote punishment that I thought would be fit for the crime that they committed. So it's kind of wild, to think about the way that, you know, for most of human history, the way that justice was carried out. And then it was...
Isn't that Hammurabi's code? Like an eye for an eye?
Oh, I did not know whose code it was, but...
yeah, I think that's Hammurabi's code, like an eye for an eye. And then it changed with Christianity when...
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Christianity specifically. This actually was in the... what was it? The 5th century BC, 6th century BC. And
no, I'm saying like it used, like Hammurabi's code was like how people used to like what you're saying. I'm agreeing with that. I'm saying the shift of like an eye for an eye, people like society started to like say, like with Christianity, I guess.
No, it was, like it wasn't Christianity that sparked it. It was before. It was the 6th century BC in Athens. It was like the Greek Empire where the modern legal system actually started, where we moved away from an eye for an eye. That's what I read yesterday.
Well, I taught history for a really long time, and you're wrong.
Well, so
I'm just kidding.
it
But Athens and yes, similar like time. Like it's not a direct. I'm saying that like the code of Hammurabi really started like to end around like Greece might have been the start of like the legal system, but I'm saying like with the whole eye for an eye, like the distinct ending, I believe historically, is once the Roman Empire started to bring in Christianity.
interesting.
So Greece very, very could have been the start of like the legal system and punishment and everything. But I'm saying the Hammurabi's code started to really fade out with
Okay. I will believe you.
Roman Empire. Thank you.
But I want to get to modern day. We're not going to spend our time in
Yes.
500 BC. So, as we all know, today we have a legal system, and it includes courts and precedent and punishments that theoretically fit the crime and all of those lovely things that make up our justice system today. Um, and because, we are taught that from a young age, and I grew up in the United States, and I am a serious rule follower. I don't know which came first. I grew up with like this really strong feeling or like need for justice, for things to feel just. Um, like if you did something bad, in my mind, I would think you should have to pay for it. Like you should have to have some kind of quote punishment, that fits the crime. And if you did something that I personally thought was morally or ethically wrong against, like my morals, then I would find it really hard and if not impossible to like forgive someone for that crime. So
Can I interrupt you for a hot second?
mhm.
Because I have found, and Manny, maybe you can speak to this too, but as teachers, when you're going through like education, like classes to become a teacher, they talk a lot about fairness, and
Mhm.
because students want to feel like they're in an equitable, like fair space. And I think it's really common. I know, Karen, you were identified as gifted, like particularly gifted students tend to really like hone in
Mm.
on the fairness, and that's not right and that's not like fair. And so when you were saying that, I was like, well, yeah, I'm sure you did care a lot about
Yeah.
because you were gifted and what all yeah, so anyway, or are
Technically,
gifted.
I wasn't gifted. Technically, I was not one of the gifted
Girl,
students.
if you were, you are gifted, I'm telling
I'm
you.
still salty about that, clearly.
That's so funny.
Because it wasn't fair.
Because it wasn't fair.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'm
I
sorry to
was.
interrupt, but that was when you were saying that, I was like, I'm sure. I bet. I know.
Well, it's funny you say that because literally, like, I was just about to be like, huge surprise that I that I thought I liked like quote Law and Order. But it's interesting. So, like a few years ago, I think it was a few years ago, I listened to that You're Wrong About podcast. And I had Amanda Knox on there, and she's been doing a lot of work on justice and like what does that mean. And it really flipped a switch for me on this topic. It made me wonder, like, why does one moment of someone's life potentially define who they are for forever? It's crazy to think about in that context. Like, we all make mistakes. Our system is theoretically designed to like quantify the gravity of your mistake and then assign a form of payment that's equal to that crime. Like that is the, I guess, underlying principle, so that you should, at the end of that payment, whether it's money or time or something else, you should have paid for your crime and be like no longer held responsible for that. So then why do we hold on to whatever feelings are associated with that? And I guess I just wanted to kind of like tee that up because for me, I always thought, like I always kind of like held a grudge on people, even if they've quote served their time. I'm curious how you two feel just like generally about justice. Are you able to forgive someone after, after they've paid for their deed, or I'm wondering if there's like variation in your minds of like if it's a smaller thing versus something that you deem larger, and how do you define those two things?
Yeah, I think there's two different questions here and how I'm hearing it. So one piece of this is about the prison system, it seems like. For when you're talking about like why do we as a society like hold a grudge, and like your one, how did you put it, like your one crime defines you for the rest of your life. I feel like that is, are you saying that for like the prison system and like criminals?
Not necessarily, because I think of this like on a personal level too. Like if someone in your life does something to hurt you, personally, do you hold that grudge for forever? Is there ever a point in time where you feel like somebody has paid for their sins, for lack of a better term? It could be smaller, but this is where I'm getting of like is there variation depending on the magnitude of the bad deed, and then how do you define that magnitude? Because something small could be something really big to the next person.
Okay, I have several thoughts.
Lay it on me.
So one, I'll just start with the prison system because that's what's really coming through for me. When you talk about like once they've paid for their crime, shouldn't that be enough? And so, and obviously like everything is a pipeline to the prison system. When not obviously, it might not be that obvious to people, but when we're thinking about when someone gets released from prison and how there's laws, different states have different laws now, but like, you can't vote. you can't in some places, New Jersey's different now, but in some places, like, the question of like, have you ever been arrested before? Right. So like that on like a job application or for trying to purchase a house, like all these things, not all these things, but questions like that get you so far in a process of trying to restore your life are no longer, you cannot move forward and trying to reacclimate yourself into society because systems and industries have these questions that will eliminate you from being able to get access to reasonable resources to be able to move forward from the crime that you just committed. And so there is systemically an issue with forgiveness that then trickles down into the mindset of our society, because we feel justified in saying that, well, like you don't want a criminal living in your neighborhood, like you don't want this person being your next door neighbor, right? And so I think that it all where I began to change my thinking in this is when I read The New Jim Crow about 10 or 11 years ago and watched the movie 13th. Those two artifacts completely awakened me to how we have really criminalized very normal behavior. And I feel not normal, like human behavior. And I feel like the answer to your question isn't necessarily like, about like the, should we be judging, or do we have the authority to judge people about their crimes? It's more, I was just lucky enough not to get caught in the first place, right? And so that's, I think, the precursor to this of like, I might be able to sit up here and say, I don't want that person, da 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 da, but at the end of the day, all of us have done some sort of behavior that has put where we have been menace to society. We just didn't get caught.
Right.
I have more thoughts, but I'll pause there and let Steph go.
No,
I love this.
Yeah, I think the issue with our justice system is there is no path to like reinstate you. Like there's
Right.
no opportunity for like like success again.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you ask the question, do you hold a grudge? Well, the United States holds a grudge. The state of
Yeah.
Ohio holds a grudge. The state of Illinois, state of New Jersey holds a grudge. And no matter if, even if, you know, whoever might have been harmed has said, you know, they served their time, I'm done with this issue. There isn't a way for the state, you know, our laws to allow for what is like what I can't think of the word I'm looking for, like repair, restored, like,
Yeah,
you know,
rehabilitation,
rehabilitation.
like,
There's
yeah.
no true, because even if you, even just having a record, you know, you
Right.
are more likely to be pulled over again. You're more likely to it's just this vicious cycle that doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
On a personal note, like if you're asking about like grudges, I am not really a grudge holder typically, but it's interesting because it kind of depends, like you said, on the transgression, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
how deeply, you know, you felt whatever it is that you felt. I know for me, if there is any sort of like acknowledgement or reflection, that usually helps. Like if it's like, oh, I understand where you're coming from and I apologize truly, that usually is enough for me. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's like not really any sort of reflection or, you know, resolve, that, and it is difficult for me to like let go, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I this is somewhat why I brought the Christianity piece in the beginning,
Mm,
because I feel like so much of this is like spiritual for me. It's like
mm,
a spiritual practice for me of like aligning myself with like higher principles and being able to like achieve like I personally believe that forgiveness is a divine act. Like
mm,
in the moments where I have forgiven some of the worst, most heinous things that have happened to me, I know that that was something that it was a process that I had to go through internally. I had to clean out a lot of venom.
mm,
Um, it's had to start with me recognizing that I even had a resentment and that I
Mm-hmm.
was re-feeling these emotions. Um, and you know, like I feel very vulnerable right now and I feel really like raw and exposed, but like I am a part of a program where I go through and I look at these certain instances that have happened to me in the past and we write them down on paper and we look at them and I talk to other people about them. And it wasn't until I actually found that as a solution, and there's so much that goes into all of this,
mhm,
that I was able to truly forgive.
mhm,
Um, and I think part of that, going back to the religion stuff, is I had to find my own concept of something of a higher power
mhm,
as opposed to what religion had taught me. And so I think when we first were talking about this as an episode, I brought up the concept of moral, vertical versus horizontal morality, and having like a moral code. And one of the things that stood out to me in this process of learning or relearning or new learning was that morality isn't good or bad. It it's what is the moral of the story here? What
Mm.
is the lesson I'm supposed to learn here?
mhm,
As opposed to I can identify something as good and I can
Right.
identify something as bad. And I feel so much more free knowing that I don't want that authority of being able to identify or or even place into a hierarchy what sins, quote unquote, or
Yeah.
what bad behavior is worse than another, you
Mhm.
know? And once I was able to free myself of that, I was able to allow in more grace.
Mm.
And then I was able to like forgive and literally forgive. Like those memories, those painful experiences have quite literally been deleted from
Hmm.
my mind, from
Mhm.
my heart.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I am definitely not there, and it sounds like I have some work to do.
It's interesting because there was a time when I was way more involved in the church and, Bible study, small groups, like all of that.
Mhm.
And one of the messages that always resonated with me was grace, like God's grace. And we would always talk about the fact that, like, sin, man creates level of sin. So, like,
Mhm.
stealing is not as bad as a like assault, which is not as bad as
Mhm.
murder, which is not. So
Mhm.
man creates levels of sin, but to God, sin is sin. And so no matter how big or small you have sinned. And so God gives
Mhm.
grace no matter what it is, kind of a thing. And I was always like that,
Mhm.
that came to mind when you were saying to forgive is divine because only some higher power can help you process through like what we would label as a big transgression, but we are human
Mhm.
and human creates levels of
Yeah.
you know so I guess that's one of the things that still resonates with me. Not to say I don't have any faith, but there's that's an aspect of my faith that I've held on to.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, like the
Yes.
quantifiable, like this is,
Yeah.
like that I have to let go of
Hmm.
because like there you it I always want to put things through like a litmus test,
Hmm.
right? Like if if I believe that this is wrong, then like on the flip, like if it were happening to me, then like I should still hold that standard.
Hmm.
And like the quantifiable like injustices, like it never works through the litmus test,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And so I have to like and that doesn't mean that like I believe that like, people should go out and like have this like go out and like do all these harm. I
Like
guess
the
I should
purge.
yeah, 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 like the purge. I think I should can I define vertical and
Yes.
moral
Please, please.
horizontal morality? So um and we can link this on our episode. But here, let me pull up this. Okay. So horizontal morality requires attuning to self and others with emotional maturity and responding with mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
Vertical morality is the mindset that says rules and authority are more important than human rights,
Mm.
your personal well being, or the health of your horizontal personal well being, or the health of your horizontal relationships. So, vertical
Mm.
morality is murder is wrong. You don't have the authority to do it. But if you have the authority by God, then it's okay.
Ooh.
So that's where I think religion comes in, saying that like you have the authority as like the uh the king of England or
Mm-hmm.
whatever to like execute these people. So
Mm.
vertical morality believes that like authority can be given to murder. Horizontal morality believes that murder is wrong because it causes harm. And so you don't believe that murder is okay no matter
Okay, that
like
makes sense.
where position in society you are,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
right? um and I don't know, I just think that I think this might be leading into your next question, Karen, of like like the innate goodness of like people,
Mm-hmm.
and like the moral compass like of humans. Like for me, in this current climate that we're in, I'm really realizing that like some people who think like, let's go with Steph's example of her Karen. Like, some people truly, really believe that, what they're experiencing in life right now, their reality is not causing harm to other people, or that they have the authority to say that, like, they like can, I don't know, that they can be like this this unkind
Yeah.
to others, and it's really an interesting experiment that we're in right now about like the moral code of our society.
Yeah, because like
I
while
think
I would have loved for Facebook to come back and say, yeah, it's been removed, I think that whoever reviews it has to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who truly believe that the person in the video was the one who was harmed. And I'm saying the language around this video, and whether the fact that that video has probably been doctored and you're creating
yeah.
propaganda is the harm.
Yeah.
And but like who Facebook has no authority to decide who's right in that case. So all I can do is report that harm has been caused, and they can say, yeah, and they think that harm was caused in the video. So
on the
we're
other
done
side. Yeah.
on the other side.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of what you two have been talking about, like bringing in the faith and the spirituality, is really interesting to me, because I was not raised in a religious household. I did grow up going, I would say, with varying frequency, going to a Unitarian Universalist church, which our specific church, like, we as children went to religious education on Sundays instead of like the main service, and they taught us a lot about the various religions of the world and what they believed. So like I had a pretty solid, relatively solid foundation, but I wouldn't have considered myself religious. Um, and I remember at some point as a very young adult, someone saying to me, like, if you don't have religion or any kind of religious foundation, how do you know the difference between right and wrong or good and bad? And I was like, because I'm a human and I understand feelings. I don't, I was like so appalled by the idea that like the only thing keeping us from just all out murdering each other is religion. And therefore, like, if you're an atheist, that equates to like the Christian version of the devil, right? It's like those things just don't jive for me. But so it brings me to like this conversation Bob and I were having with some friends last weekend. It was like the weirdest, like deepest conversation for like a 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon. And we were like, we were discussing like whether you thought a person was innately, like any person was innately good or not. And it definitely coincides with this like concept of justice. I think I would have always said, and I'm still like teetering on this, but I would have always said I thought people were innately good. And our conversation was quite interesting because it's like the course of human history would suggest maybe we're not. And as you look into like justice, I can't help but think about the progress, like the progression over just a single lifetime, right? When you're a little kid, we all have had like toddlers. You see them sitting down and playing together. It's like one kid takes the other kid's toy, and then the kid like smacks them to take their toy back, and like that is how they handle their shit. So like that is naturally in there. Like that's somehow innate. And then as you were talking about stuff in school, we teach like fairness and rules and right and wrong, and we learn about our justice system, our legal system, and like the hierarchy of deeds. And then we have this system that stops us from all just like taking vengeance on one another when we are wronged. So then I'm like, well, is everything I've thought just wrong? Like, are we actually not innately good?
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't handle that.
Yeah. I think that's even like the foundation of like faith or Christianity in particular is that we were born sinners. We were born not good, and through Jesus, we can be.
Everybody go to YouTube to watch that facial expression, please.
It sounds like I'm mocking Christianity. I'm not. I'm just saying that's the foundation. Is that through?
And that's the one that we know the most.
That's the one I know the most. So that's what I'm.
to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, and I think every religion has some sort of salvation or connection to God. But like that was always the thing too. Is like we are separated from God, and through your faith is how you get back because we are sinners. We are not born good.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question? Is it that what's the question?
I'm wondering, well, I think I'm wondering whether you guys think we are like human beings are innately good or not.
How are you defining good?
Yeah, that's the question. I think in this conversation, it can be defined a lot of different ways, but in my mind, I think it's being kind to one another, not causing harm to other people. But I'm curious what you think of when I ask that question.
It's hard because so much of what moves me, I mean, a lot of my career is about social justice. And, so when I think about this, I can't help but think about it as a systemic, issue. And so I think a lot of my unraveling has had to do with like unraveling the tentacles of white supremacy in my own personal experience, and what does that look like for me. And I think that correlates with the religion part, because so much of religion, you're seeing this in Christianity, particularly right now, of like the message has been lost, the words, the translations have been construed, sorry. And it's been done to get people more power because of like capitalism.
And so, the patriarchy and white supremacy. All of the above.
Yeah. And those are very big concepts. And maybe one day we'll really get into we'll address those concepts. And so it just feels like I have to do the work first, to understand and define what those things are. I have to go seeking for when people say white supremacy or the patriarchy or capitalism. Like, I have to understand what those things mean and how I'm a part of it and how I'm contributing to those things, in order for me to really see the goodness in other people, right? Because our people, just kind of going along with what they've been told since they were, little, and they don't feel like they have choice to see otherwise. And is my role and responsibility to kind of say here's some light over here where we can shine some different perspective on this, and just offer that. I can't go around, I guess my answer is I can't go around, and this is perfect because being a Karen is minding other people's business, right? So I have to mind my own business. And by minding my own business, that is so much work.
Yeah.
That I don't have time to really even try to dissect if somebody else is doing the right or the wrong thing,
And if we're talking about right or wrong is whether or not you're causing someone harm, and you are someone who is operating in some of these systems that do cause harm, but you don't know that you're a direct beneficiary of those systems.
Yeah.
And so you're not really going to adjust. You are a direct beneficiary of the patriarchy if you are a white male. You are a direct beneficiary of, you know what I mean? And And because it's systemic and baked into the bread, like the fabric is woven is the fabric of our country, um the things that you're doing that causes harm are justified in
Yeah.
the system. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that might be my like aha of this, is that it's maybe not about defining what's right and wrong. It's maybe about defining what's causing
Harm.
harm
Mhm.
That's what
to
was going to
others,
be my
you know? Because I think so much of the conversation happening in our stratosphere right now is that like Black people are starting to name like all the microaggressions. They're
Yeah.
starting to name the things, women, you know, we saw with the Me Too movement, we're starting to name the things that hurt us,
Mhm.
made us feel uncomfortable, took away our self-worth,
Mm.
right? And as those things start to come to the surface, you can't help but unsee it
Mhm.
when you're like faced with like the 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 people telling you, no, this caused me harm
Mhm.
and it led me to X, Y, and Z place.
Mhm.
And like that's the responsibility of like our society to like heal it, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that I think is
interesting,
my
like,
aha.
as you're saying that, it's like, what is the focal point of the discussion, right? As opposed to like, is a human good or bad? It's about
Right.
what um what is the cause of their actions. It's not like, did they choose to do something good or bad? It's how did the recipient of their actions feel. It makes me think of
Mhm.
therapy. Like the first thing you cover
Mhm.
in therapy, or at least in couples therapy, is like, your feelings are valid. It's not about, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. Well, great.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not talking
Yeah.
about you. Stop
Yep.
centering yourself. You
Yeah.
actually made me feel bad. So it doesn't
Mhm.
Mhm.
matter, yeah, if you meant to or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's just like a totally different angle to the problem. Like, stop centering ourselves in it and
Mhm.
start realizing. And
I
it goes
think
back
that
to
right.
like collectivism versus like individualism. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Steph.
No, I think that that speaks exactly to why it's hard to effect change, because when you are naming things that cause harm, it causes oftentimes a defense
Yeah.
reaction, because that's not what I intended. And so, and, like oftentimes, if you're saying, hey, there's a lot of historical and cultural um, and racial um, implications in that phrase you just used, or what you're saying, or what you're doing, you're calling me a racist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the
Yeah.
conversation
Maybe I am.
gets shut down. It's like, I didn't call you a racist. I'm drawing attention
Yeah.
to um, language that
Yeah.
can cause harm.
Mm-hmm.
And and so and either you take that information and you think about it, reflect, and make changes, or you can continue to perpetuate what I'm telling you is a harmful issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is like, making me think about like another synonym to justice is like repair,
Mhm.
right? So when we were talking about like coming out of the prison system, there is no repair while you're in the prison system. I mean, there's some programs that come in to help, rehabilitate.
Mhm.
I use that loosely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
It
but like,
leaves something to be desired for sure.
yeah, but like what is the and I thought about this too, like after the or during the height of the election in September and October, when I was took a step back and just was looking at my feed of like, the tribalism, the
Mhm.
ideologies. I was like, no matter who wins, we are going to need a leader who knows how to repair.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, like the way that I'm surviving this climate right now is by doing that individually,
Right.
and like focusing on like what is within my sphere of influence that I can do
Yeah.
so that I'm not becoming the thing that I quote unquote hate. And so that my light can be attractive enough that people will want to like
be drawn to
follow.
it.
Right. I don't need to like go out and like start pointing fingers and blaming more. I just need to start doing and creating, you know, and repairing, because there's so much that needs to be repaired. We are so divisive right now. And it's quite possibly because we all have very different definitions of justice.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And perhaps none of them are quite correct.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to our conversation with when I was talking about gentle parenting.
Yes.
Because I feel like that's kind of the aspects of gentle parenting that I like is the idea of like discipline versus punishment. And so like, you know, the Destiny and my girl
Destiny. Whoop, whoop. Shout out
to you. She says discipline, the root word is to teach. And so when behaviors are happening, so then we're thinking about our justice system, it should be an opportunity for restoration and repair, but instead our justice system reverts to punishment, which does not change anything. And so the goal with gentle parenting is to teach our child how to behave in a like receptive environment. If we go straight to punishment, it's just
they don't ever learn. Right. Right.
Yeah. And that's part of like, I'm sorry, I know we're getting on time, and I think Steph, you might talk about this in next week, but that's part of restoration is addressing the elephant in the room. Like, I spoke to my friend who's a principal about a situation that was happening in my daughter's classroom last year. And she told me like restorative justice is bringing the student who caused harm back into the circle with their classmates and having an open conversation of how did that make you guys feel? Or how did that make you feel when such and such threw a chair at the teacher, you know?
Whoa.
And no, but seriously, these things are happening in like first, second grade classrooms. And how did that make you feel? And the students talk about it. And then you go to the quote unquote perpetrator and you say, how did that make you feel hearing that your classmates felt this way? You know, and it's an open conversation, because so much of like, I remember when I was in elementary school, like the adults tried to pretend that didn't happen.
Right.
And I'm like, it happened. And so now we're all living in this like disillusion.
Weird,
yeah. And I don't know if I'm safe or not. Right. And so I think so much of why this is uncomfortable is because we don't want to really address the like harm and what happened. And that's the restoration is the conversation of this hurt me. And I want you to hear that it hurt me. And I want you to tell me how it feels to hear that you hurt me. And there's an exchange, you know, and there's an opportunity.
It makes me think it's like that the generation, like our parents' generation, was very avoidant, right? Like it's the same idea as like, I don't see color. Like that's how I'm not racist. I don't see color. It's like, no, if you don't talk about it, it doesn't mean it's not there. Anyways, I know we are coming up on time. I think that was like just a conversation that means I have so much more to explore on this topic. And I love that. And hopefully we get to have more conversations. But for now, please, everybody, follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe, all of those things. If you want to see all of Steph's facial expressions, you can watch us on YouTube. And
can we tell our Instagram? It was pointed out to me that we like what is our Instagram? And they're like, what is her? So it's you can call me Karen_pod.
That sounds right. Yes. Please follow us. And everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye. Bye, Karens.
And the fox, and the green one, and the fox, and the blue one, and the fox, and the yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same.